All right, I started it.
All right, everybody. It is another week of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode 115. Even with all our stops and starts and renumbering and reboots, we are way strong here at 115. This is the week of October 14th. It is here. It is Tuesday night. This is our GX show. This is our gamer experience show. On the Enough to Keep Going network, on the E2KG network, we every other week we'll come at you with our playlist of what we've been playing, all the things that have kept us engaged and interested or frustrated over the last 2 weeks in terms of what has been in our play rotation. And on the opposite weeks, just like last week and next week, if you tune in here, you'll hear our deep dive as we dive into the news and the industry and the ramifications of what that means for us as gamers, as gamer culture, as a business, as a hobby, as a general playtime, pastime experience. So tonight is our GX show, and joining me tonight, I am at DBQ Hams, and joining me is Osiris Prime. How are you, sir?
I'm good, but I forgot my water, so I might have to go
Oh
get that.
no. Okay, well, guess
I don't
what?
want to. I
I'm
don't want
pretty
to be
sure I
parched
can
during the show.
ramble on for a little bit here. So I will set us up because on our playlist show, we always do our gaming assignment. So this is the assignment that one of the hosts assigns to the rest of us, gives us our task for the 2 weeks in advance in terms of something to play, a topical playlist, and then we'll dive into our actual what we've been playing. So the assignment from 2 weeks ago was from Agasicles, and his assignment was to grab or revisit a point in your life game, something from your past, some game that has stuck with you, something that has held on with some emotional resonance, whether that is the game experience or what was going on within your life at the time that you were playing. Maybe the game became a touchstone of some type of processing, some type of growth. Maybe the game was a comfort in a time of crisis. All types of different pieces of ways that we can experience games, and not only games, but as I was thinking about this and thinking about what I would choose, the thing that also kept with me is the game music, the game experience as a whole. That it is not only the play, but it is also the experience around it. Maybe the people we played with, or that time in our life. So Gasicles, his one that he kind of tossed out there was Sid Meier's Pirates as something that came at a crucial time in his life. So he's not here to. I can hear you. Is your voice still there? That's good. No, so you messed up my montage. Oh no, man! I just have to start it over. I'm sure the audience won't mind. Anyhow, but so tonight is Cyrus Prime and myself. We are going to be talking about. So here are two. Okay, I'll say I'm more middle aged than Osiris is, but we both have some history in terms of gaming, and so I think we're going to be revisiting not so much some recent games, but more games from past generations in terms of seeing where it hits us in terms of when this assignment first came out. I will say that the first game I thought of, which has a strong emotional resonance with me, is Super Mario World. So SNES Super Mario World, it certainly was an important game in terms of the launch of the Super Nintendo. It was something that kind of pulled me from leaning toward a Genesis into buying a Super Nintendo. But the emotional piece of it was when I revisited it decades later, after a tragic loss in my family, that I went back and replayed Super Mario World and finished all 96 worlds. But it was this little piece of childhood that in the midst of chaos and grief that I could hang on to. And so that's the type of emotional experience potentially that we're talking about. Maybe not, maybe that heavy. It may be something about maybe a time in your life. Maybe it was, so who knows? So I picked a number of retro games here. My son has picked up a Retron 3, 4, not a 5. So I'm looking at a handful of games that I still have: Double Dribble, Super Play Action Football, Super Tecmo Bowl, and PGA Golf. So those were the games that I picked up. Osiris, what did you pick up?
So I'm going to do the Gascles mic on and off tonight since evidently when you stop it or try to mute in OBS, that doesn't mute it. So as you just found out when I interrupted you. So my trio of games here that I picked, and this, I just happened to set up my N64. We were talking a little bit before how I have my new digs here that I'm in my basement now, and I was setting up the other side of my basement with a TV, and I wanted to put some old game systems on there. So I put my N64, my Nintendo 64, and a Sega Genesis. It's like it's not the official like mini Sega Genesis. It's like an older one that got released a couple years ago, I think it was, or 3 years ago. And then I have my Wii U out there. But the three games I picked were for the N64, excuse me, and they were WrestleMania 2000, GoldenEye, and Road Rash 64. So, and before I get into those games, I just want to say the first game I actually thought of in this report out was actually Driver. Back in the day, back on the was that PlayStation 2? I think when it first came out, maybe original PlayStation.
The original PlayStation did have a driver.
It might have been the original one then, because at that point in my life, I had just lost my job, and I was like totally bummed out. I mean, this was like my early 20s or so, I believe, maybe mid 20s, and I was just like totally bummed out. My first job I ever had, I lost it, and I was just like, oh, and I just played the heck out of that game. I'm not even sure if I actually even beat it. I think I did, but it got me through like a lot. But I couldn't go back. I don't have. Actually, I think I do have a PS1, but I don't think I have that game anymore. So I couldn't go back to that one. So I picked these ones for a couple of reasons. Mostly, I remember this was a time when a lot of my friends were still coming over. We were playing, all these games, and it was just a fun time that I had with my friends. We'd be kind of rowdy and and yelling at each other. Just getting mad, especially in WrestleMania 2000, just because that one was just
That was a good grappler. Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yep.
And the other reason besides friends, and I'll get more into all these things, but is just gameplay. And this is more so probably for WrestleMania 2000. It was just fun with WrestleMania 2000. The WrestleMania games now, or the wrestling games now, they're just like it's just too much. I haven't had fun with the wrestling games since these old ones on the 64. I think even when they got into the GameCube, I was just like, they're all right, but they just started to get too technical, and you had to use like every button to do something. So it's like this is like a grapple and a hit and a run maybe, and that was pretty much it. I think there might have been a separate pin button, or there might have been like a combo button that you did pin and something else, and it was just so simple and fun. And I was just thinking before we get on here, I wish they would bring back that style of wrestling and maybe just have it like a goofy, kind of like the NBA Jam or Blitz, football games of those genres, of football and basketball. They can make it like a wrestling game like that and just have it that old style, simple controls. And maybe it's because I'm getting old. I'm going to be Agasicles and be the grumpy old man saying I wish, for easier times. But yeah, it was just totally fun when I started playing it just now, this past weekend. It was just like I had so much fun graphically now, all these games. It's like, wow, these are really bad, and it might be because I'm using an old. Well, it's a flat screen, but it's kind of an older one. I think it's only 720p, but even still, it's like you could just you just see how bad these games look back then, just blocky. And for wrestling and GoldenEye, you had like the actual face of the wrestler and the actors for GoldenEye, but it was just like a polygon, like kind of like jaggedy, graphics, and then just kind of like plastered on, just kind of painted on.
Yeah, it was pretty much just like a mapped face onto.
Yeah.
Yep, very much so.
Yeah, so
All flat textures and.
Yeah, I think it looked worse in the wrestling game, but in GoldenEye it was a little bit better, I suppose, but not much. But Rare tried their best. But yeah, but I just had like, and it was GoldenEye too. I just had so much fun with going back to that game. I hadn't played it, maybe like 5 or 6 years, 7 years, somewhere around there. I think the last time I played it, it was like a ROM on a PC, so I was like, it wasn't the same. I just had like keyboard and mouse, and it was all right. But this was actually GoldenEye with the N64 Trident controller, so that's you have only the one stick in the middle of it, and then you had to use like the C buttons to like look up left, up down left right.
You sure did. Yep.
So it was rough. The gameplay was rough. I couldn't even get past the first screen. It took me like a bunch of tries. And when I finally did, I actually didn't get past it. I did get to like the end point of the dam level. Basically, is where you start off of. You're supposed to jump off, and I got to that point, but I failed it because there was like a secondary mission that you had to like destroy all the alarms or something like that. I was like, okay, I didn't even know where those were. So there's a lot of like back and forth in this game that you have to do now that I know. So I'll go back and play it and do those extra missions. But it was still fun though. I mean, I still like the gameplay and all that. But and then Road Rash 64, I just threw that in there because I love Road Rash 64. The spiritual successor, I can't remember the name right now, that just came out recently. I think it was just this past year, at least for the Switch.
Was that Road Redemption or something like
Yeah,
that?
Road Redemption. Yeah, I mean that was fun.
Yeah.
I still play that, but there's just something about this Road Rash game that it's just like spot on. You kind of hear like when you're hitting people, they just have like goofy sayings and just goofy noises and stuff like that. So it just brought me
So,
back to a simpler time.
so I played it on the Genesis back in the day. Does it play similar in terms of the 64 version, or is it just blocky graphics in 3D versus
Yeah,
pixel art and flat planes?
yeah, they had the polygon graphics. The drivers themselves, they look pretty much okay. But yeah, like the scenery is just like kind of it just kind of all flat, and you see like a tree looks decent from far away, and you get past get toward it, and you can just see it like this. That's the tree. So it's just kind of goofy, the graphics, but they're fine. Yeah, gameplay wise though, it's actually pretty spot on. I mean, I really enjoyed the gameplay on that one. So there's something about the new one it's similar, but it's a little off. There's something a little off about the gameplay, just about the driving maybe or something. But it's still fun. But I think that out of all three of these, I played Road Rash the most, and I had the most fun with that one.
Yeah, nice. So did you find yourself playing them? Were you thinking about the memories of when you played them originally, or how much did you balance that kind of nostalgia aspect with kind of analyzing the game as a game experience now?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't. I kind of hate that
It's
though.
right. You can't disconnect it. I'm not
I
saying it's
know, I know,
bad,
I
right?
know. I kind of hate though when people talk like that. It's like, oh, I mean, I know these games are bad, like gameplay wise, like it's terrible. Like especially GoldenEye because you don't have that extra control stick, so it's very hard. But yeah, I guess it's the nostalgia that kind of keeps me going in it, and it just wants me to kind of keep playing it. And even like I said, WrestleMania is another one. The graphics are horrible, but the gameplay is like for me at least the gameplay is spot on. I mean, I like that simple.
Well, and that's where I think the point of I don't think it's fair to say that the gameplay is bad, right? The gameplay may be simplistic compared to a current interpretation,
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean it's bad gameplay, right? I mean that WrestleMania, those games, that and No Mercy, those are still hold up from wrestling video game fans as some of the great grapplers. Right? And Road Rash it's an arcade game. It's not meant to be super complex. It can just be fun.
yeah.
So
It's not
the graphics,
MotoGP or whatever that one like
yeah,
super
right.
one.
I think it's okay to not something doesn't have to be super high end polished graphics in order to be enjoyable. And that's but I think you're right, right? Like it's oftentimes when we get into these conversations, it's easy to either lean into the oh my gosh, I can't believe we enjoyed this, or well, of course I enjoy it, but it's the emotions that I enjoy, it's the nostalgia that I enjoy. That there are games that still hold up in terms of that game experience, even without having to be complex.
Yeah, and like GoldenEye is hard. Like for me,
Yeah,
it was hard. Like not just because of the gameplay, but like there's no. I don't know if there's health packs. You might get health packs at some point, but that first level there was no health packs. So like you got hit and you got hit. So when if you died like that first third of the level, that's it. You got to start all over again. So I had to get back into that mindset. Like oh yeah, I can't just regenerate my health like in a Halo or like any other game nowadays.
right.
Most likely.
Halo really changed that with the ability to regenerate health. Yeah, played Perfect Dark a couple of years ago and had that like, wow, this is not forgiving at all. Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah. Well, I had similar experiences with the games that I played in terms of feeling like, yeah, some of these actually do hold up in terms of fun gameplay experiences. Some of them are things where I could enjoy uh, kind of the simplistic aspect of some of these interpretations of the sport, and then also realizing how far modern interpretations have come as well. So again, I picked up basketball, football, and golf in terms of my game. So I played a little bit of Double Dribble. Double Dribble was the first game that I owned on the original Nintendo. So after getting the pack-ins of Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers that my parents left for the weekend on some type of like parental getaway. Um, and they asked, what they could bring back, and I said, bring me back either Castlevania or Double Dribble, because at that time I knew the Konami silver boxes were pretty good quality. And they brought me back Double Dribble, which from a gameplay historian aspect, probably Castlevania has a little more significance, but I can tell you as a middle school boy, got a lot of friend basketball games out of Double Dribble and that kind of metal clank off the rim. And so playing Double Dribble again, that's where the sounds came back, that kind of chunk as you slam the ball with your silver gray character when it zooms in, and the kind of squeaking sounds of the floor. There were lots of middle school sleepover nights playing basketball against each other in terms of Double Dribble. And I still remember, and it came right back to me in terms of how far away from the free throw line I could jump and trigger the dunk animation. So, definitely, and it was fun, right? I mean, once I figured out which buttons again did what, because I no longer had the pack-in, you know, manual to tell me which buttons did what. So that was actually pretty fun and still held up as a pretty simple, straightforward interpretation of basketball. Playing Super Tecmo Bowl on the Genesis and Super Play Action Football on the Super Nintendo. I played a little bit, and then I played a little bit with my son as well. Super Play Action Football I actually owned back on the Super Nintendo, and the thing that I remember about it was that you could play high school, college, and NFL football. So it had all NFL teams. It had a sampling of college teams, and the playbooks were different. You had run options. You had a number of other pieces in the college playbooks, and then you had football, like high school football, where you could make your own team. And as a high school football player, that was super awesome, right? You could design your own uh, uniforms, and you had a simplistic playbook. But the weird thing about both play action football on the NES and Super Play Action Football, which I would really love to find out kind of the rationale behind this, and maybe this is a YouTube deep dive at some point in time. But the whole field you moved at a diagonal, and I don't know if that was a limitation of trying to distinguish it versus Tecmo Bowl, which was horizontal, or John Elway, which was vertical. Was there a reason for that, or was it simply that it seemed to maybe capture more of the field? What it does make is it makes it really hard to see any downfield receivers. It makes me really appreciate Madden nowadays in terms of how much screen and field I can actually see. So you zoomed in closely and you see on the mini map, you see all these little dots in terms of who might be open. But and the same thing is true in Super Tecmo Bowl, that because of the vertical piece, just like regular Tecmo Bowl, that you sure if you're going to pass, you better know that your receiver doesn't have somebody right next to them when you throw it, and you're only going to see that as they run their way off screen. Then you hope that has continued. Tecmo Bowl definitely holds up better in terms of gameplay because it is pretty arcadey and doesn't try to get overcomplicated or throw too many plays in there. So that still holds up, and really the Genesis version of Super Tecmo Bowl feels very much just like a 16-bit version of Tecmo Bowl, of Super Tecmo Bowl, or Tecmo Super Bowl, right? I always get those two mixed up. That Tecmo Super Bowl was the second NES game, and then Super Tecmo Bowl was on Super Nintendo and Genesis. And then finally, PGA Golf. So PGA Golf, again, I went back to games that I first owned. So PGA Golf was the first game that I bought for the Super Nintendo. That after buying the pack-in, and the game I left the store with was a golf game of everything. But it was a game that I played on the Genesis and really liked and almost got me to buy a Genesis. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to buy this here because I know I enjoy it on the Genesis. And I spent months and months playing it and playing through tournaments and almost save. I was save scumming in terms of I'd save a shot and then if I hit a bad shot, I'd hit reset and go back and so I had remembered everything in terms of which buttons do this and playing with my son and kind of talking it through in terms of the math of it of like, oh yeah, well, so if this number is over here, this is how far your shot can go and this is how far you are from the pin and the whole kind of 3 button, swing meter, uh, again is relatively simple compared to something like the golf club where you've got your analog sticks and you're trying to move it back and forth and while that may be a more accurate representation of the sport, it almost overcomplicates it. Going back to what you were talking about with wrestling, where PGA golf is just it doesn't have to be super graphically intensive to just be a fun golf game. So we ended up playing a number of rounds and just really enjoying that and having a lot of good memories in terms of sitting with friends and playing that. So yeah, I think some ways things are successful when the gameplay can hold up, even if the graphics don't. And then sometimes you also can realize in both our cases how far we've come in terms of some gameplay designs as well. So any other thoughts on our point in the life games that you want to hit on before we head out into what we've been playing?
I couldn't remember Super Play Action Football. I was looking up a YouTube video. I still don't. I don't really remember. I was looking at the gameplay. I can't remember that, but I do remember like the box art, which is like the football player kind of like the
Yeah, it was
center.
a
It's the center, I
lineman
guess.
kind of
Yeah,
bent over. Yeah,
yeah.
yep, it was the center. Yeah.
I remember that,
And then
but I can't
the
remember the game though.
Well, that probably says something. It ran pretty slow. It was pretty methodical in terms of the chunk running.
The graphics
The
are pretty
original,
decent though. I mean,
yeah, I mean because they are zoomed in, it actually it looks pretty good, and it still
yeah.
looks pretty good. Playing on a CRTV, it looks real crisp. The original Play Action Football was one of the 4-player games on the NES, so you could have
Oh,
I remember doing this with we had I organized a Nintendo 4-player tournament one time at as a middle school, and we had 2 different. We had Super Off Road, right? Ivan Man Stewart's Super Off Road, and a volleyball game, and this Play Action Football, and one other game that all had the 4 score or whatever it was, the satellite where you could have 4 players hooked up together. And so you'd have 2 people on defense and 2 people on offense playing on these little tiny blocky NES football characters. But again, it was fun.
yeah.
So yeah, it was something I picked up. Both Super Play Action Football and PGA Golf were games that were I don't know like $1 or 2 at my local used game store because old sports games don't necessarily carry a whole lot of price unless they have the Tecmo name attached to them. So,
Yeah.
anyhow, let's talk about some new games that we've been playing, or at least some recent games as well. And well, Cyrus, I'm going to start with you because there has been some of one of the most popular games over the last year with Fortnite. They've just ended their season in a big old black hole, and now they're starting back up on a kind of a new map. Is that correct? You've had a chance to play. Did you play toward the end of the season with the accumulation events, or have you just kind of picked it up now with the new season?
No, I actually did get back into it like the last couple weeks before the black hole event. Unfortunately, I actually missed the event itself when they did that. Their last they do like the end of the season like event, like I don't want to say animation or cutscene. You can actually play in it, and you're kind of just sitting there though, so you can't really do much. But you're just kind of watching a movie at that point. But I missed that, and I had to go back and watch it later on in the day because I had family stuff to take care of. But yeah, it was just the whole thing was interesting these last couple of days with people staring at a black hole for hours on end or just like leaving their system up to see just in case something happens they want to catch it. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, I played just actually before we got on air, and so when you start off, there's like they once again they do another little. This was an actual like animation video that they pull off, and then at the end of it you see the guy jump out of the battle bus, which is what you start off of in Fortnite, and actually you're playing at that point. You can control the character, which is one of the default characters at that point, and you actually jump in and you're playing a real game, and I think it starts off with just 50 people or 50 players, and it's just you're the only human, and then the rest of them are bots. So I think they're it's actually a good jumping on point. Like if you've never played it, or maybe if you haven't played it in a long time, you just ease into it. I mean, the bots are super simple. They're super easy. I mean, I didn't have. I might have got hit a few times, but I never got killed, so that was kind of nice. But it was kind of nice that they kind of did that, and they just kind of eased you into it for, like I said, returning players or newbies. And I believe, and I haven't had a chance to look over the update notes, but I believe you can do bots now in the game. I'm not sure. I only played one real game, so I don't know if they're all in all games, or maybe just like in the playground and creative games where you can like set up bots and you'll be able to play against them. So I gotta check on that still. But the one real game I played, it was still pretty much Fortnite. There's some new additions that you can do, and how I guess they do the battle pass and how you level up now is a lot different. There's all different ways you can level up your character and your battle pass, and just your level to unlock things. So. And not just like killing people, and there's all different other kind of things you can do now. So I got to dive into that a little bit more and get into it. So yeah, so far just one game with real people. I'm assuming they're all real people. I don't know. Maybe they're bots too now. Who knows? I'm not sure how that's working out yet. So, whoop, don't hear you right now. I don't know if you're muted.
I am muted. That's
There you
why. So, yeah, how could you tell that they were bots? Again, was that was it the name over them, or did it explicitly say that?
Well, there was no name over them for one thing, and there's always a name over people
Yep.
when they
Okay.
play. So, and then they were just like super simple. They just like I just ran into one, like he wasn't even doing anything, and I was just like running around him, and he's just like sitting there like picking away at a house trying to get the materials. So I was like, all right, that's a bot. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's a
You're
bot.
like, okay.
Or like,
Obviously, that's not a human.
yeah, they'll shoot you once, and then they'll start like trying to get materials. Like, okay, that's kind of weird, but so yeah.
It's an interesting way that they're doing the bots then too, in terms of if that's the kind of AI on them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know initially what they said is they want to basically if you do play with the bots, so maybe you can do it in like the regular mode somehow, but like I said, I haven't seen it. But from what I was reading before this all came out, as the bots will ramp up in difficulty as you ramp up, and then eventually I think they just go away, and they throw you into a pool of
Oh,
live players.
that's nice.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
it's
That's
kind of nice.
kind of a leveling up or an onboarding process in terms of kind of scaling with the player. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you were talking about some building. Did you have a chance to build in No Man's Sky, or what have you been doing there? See that's on your playlist. Did you get a chance to dive back in, or what drew you back in there?
Uh, yeah, I started back in because I started streaming now again, and I have this whole new setup now that I can actually do it a lot easier now, and I don't have to like break everything down like I did before. So now I just have it up; it's always there, and I could just pop in into Xbox or Switch or whatever and start streaming. So I wanted to go back, and this goes back to when they released the Beyond update. I started playing again with that, and I just started over. So I'm just going through there and streaming, and I think I got like halfway through the building. I don't know if you want to call it like a mission or storyline or whatever you want to call it. So as you unlock stuff for the building, this is materials and like machines and stuff like that. I got like halfway through that, and I kind of was like, all right, I think I'm good with this now.
Did you get off your first planet, or?
Yeah, so now I finally got off my first planet, and I'm looking for. I had to jump to another planet to look for material so I can get like the warp drive so I can go to another galaxy now. So I'm in that phase
Yep.
right now.
Nice. That's
So
cool. That's fun. So how do you feel? How does the new process? Because you played it last year on Xbox when it did No Man's Sky Next, and now that
right.
we're in Beyond, how maybe you don't remember exactly how the onboarding, the intro tutorial pieces are, but how did you feel it was this time?
I mean, it pretty much starts you off the same. The only thing now is you can start building pretty much right away. Like after you get like the first few, like you get your visor scan, your scan for your visor, and some of the what do you call it? The terrain like deformer. I think actually once you got that, then you're able to start building just like right away. So I don't have to do
Yeah, and
anything
I think
else.
that comes a whole lot sooner in terms of the the intro missions.
Yeah, because I remember you said you got pretty far into it before you were able to build the first time you
Yeah, and
played.
that was way back in that was in the original kind of launch of it, or at least in before Next happened, and then Next kind of added some additional pieces. But this really feels like it's the smoothest ramp that No Man's Sky has had.
Yeah, and just try to ring out my trifecta of streaming games here is Rocket League. I put that on there only because I'm actually streaming Rocket League. I'd never streamed Rocket League. It's actually pretty fun to go in there and stream that. And actually now they just updated. I think they're in their whatever their next season or whatever is, and they're actually having a crossover with Stranger Things, so from Netflix.
Oh, cool!
So that's kind of cool. So you can
How are they
unlock.
doing? How is Rocket League doing a crossover?
It's basically just you unlock skins and like the wheels and like the trails and all this other stuff that you can do in Rocket League. So that's pretty much it as far as I can tell. I think they did over the summer. They did like an '80s theme season or like little thing. So they
I think
had
so. Kind of a lot of neon and things.
a
Yeah.
lot of neon. They actually had stuff from Ghostbusters you can get and Knight Rider. You can get the car from Knight Rider and stuff like that, and just decals and background stuff. So and they had a couple, I think two or three different modes during that season where it was like a special mode that they just threw on for like a couple weeks and then they switched off. So I don't know if they're going to do that with this or not. Excuse me. So it's kind of cool. So I like Stranger Things, so it all works out. And it's nothing extra that you have to do for the Rocket Pass or Battle Pass, whatever you want to call it. This is actually a separate mode that you like get. I think it's like candy corn or pumpkins, whatever. After every game, you get so many of these things. So depending on how you did, you just trade them in to get the different things.
And you're playing Rocket League on Xbox?
Both Xbox and Switch. I'll switch off depending on what I'm
Okay.
playing the night that night. So I usually end with Rocket League just to calm myself down, even though that gets my blood boiling sometimes.
I
Just
was gonna
to,
say, calm yourself down with Rocket League. Yeah, I
yeah,
can see
it's not
that.
bad though. I have a lot of fun with Rocket League, so it actually pretty much does. Even if I'm losing all the time, it's like I still have fun with it.
Nice, nice. So I have been on the road a lot over the last week, which has meant that I've been playing a lot of mobile games and some Switch games. And so, since you were talking about GoldenEye a little earlier, I'm going to stick with a rare lineage game and talk a little bit about Ukulele and the Impossible Lair. So this is Playtonics. These are former rare people. They did Ukulele a couple years ago, the Kickstarter game, which was kind of modeled after Banjo Kazooie, Banjo Tooie, and now they've taken those same characters with Yuka and Laylee and thrown them into kind of a 2D uh, side scroller with a little bit of 3D overworld exploration puzzle pieces there, but the levels are all 2D. And at first, the response when this first came out, I was excited because I know the lineage of these people, right? Like that may be the banjo people, but really, even before they were banjo people, they were Donkey Kong Country people, and so, and then this is very much where the Impossible Layer feels that it draws its inspiration. You've got you've got some roll moves that feel kind of similar to Donkey Kong Country. The bat flies off of you when you get hit, and you've got a certain number of seconds to get it back on. Very much like the original Yoshi's Island, where Baby Yoshi or Baby Mario falls off and starts crying. So there's those mechanics in there as well, but it's got some really good platforming. It's not tight like Mario. After playing a lot of Super Mario Maker over the last few months, it's not that type of tight platforming. It's got a little bit of weight and momentum, very similar to the Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, Jungle DK Returns, all of those type of games that kind of fall into that lineage as well. But the graphics look great on Switch. It's running pretty well. I've played it both docked and undocked. It works with both. It's really vibrant docked, but it's also really nice and crisp playing it undocked in handheld mode as well. I'm not that far into it. I've only kind of got through a few levels, but playing around the menus and some of the different tonics. So these are kind of different things that you can unlock or find around the world. Some of them are just kind of graphical skins, right? Some of this is like if you pre-ordered the game, you got a Yuka 64, which kind of devolved everything down into kind of simple polygons. So it had that kind of N64 feel to it. There's even a Game Boy kind of green scale skin, but then you get things like going back to the same kind of 90s mode of you get a big head mode, you can get big googly eyes.
Nice.
The googly eyes do they require you to hit an enemy a second time, right? You hit them once to drop the googly eyes, and you hit them again to die. And at first, that could give you an extra challenge, but kind of looking at it and seeing how it plays out, it also means that potentially you could use an enemy to bounce on to get up to a higher platform or get a little further across than you might be able to otherwise. So they've really, I mean, it's something I'm glad I picked up. It's been fun to kind of go back into that kind. Again, it doesn't have to be great graphics and huge if the gameplay is solid, and here the gameplay is solid in terms of if you're looking for a solid 2D platformer, this definitely kind of cuts that bill. So it's Ukulele and the Impossible Layer. And then since I have been on the road and traveling with my family means that my Switch time is limited, I've actually spent a lot of time playing a huge chunk of Apple Arcade games. So Apple Arcade launched at the end of September. I kind of waited until the beginning of October to get my free month because I wanted to remember exactly when I started so that I could cancel if I wanted to. But again, it's only $5 a month, and there's a ton of games on there. And at this point, I've played I've got a list here. I've played 15, 18 different games, and sometimes maybe I don't stick with them as long as I would have if I would have paid $5 for it. But because I've paid $5 for all of them, it really allows me to kind of dip in and out and play a lot of different things. There's some. I'm not going to list through all 15, 18 games, but there are. I mean, the value proposition of this is excellent. If you have an iOS device that for $5 a month you get you get all access to these games. They can be, and the other nice thing about them is I could download them and then I don't have to have a Wi-Fi connection to play them. They're on my
Oh,
device, and
nice.
so right and that nowadays that doesn't always happen. That you need, it's there's no authentication check on it,
Uh,
and
can
maybe
I
there is over
can I ask what you're playing it on, or what you played these on?
uh, an iPad,
Oh, just an iPad. Okay.
6th gen iPad. Yep. So but I also paired a PlayStation 4 controller with. So
Oh, nice.
the new iOS 13 has native PS4 and Xbox controller support. So I even packed a PlayStation controller along with me, which actually came in handy in a lot of different games. Played Oceanhorn 2, which is kind of the beautiful graphics. It is kind of in that Zelda 3D world type of environment. Played it both with touch controls and with a controller. I was very glad to have a controller. Way Forward has two different games on there right now. They've got another Shantae game, which actually at this point doesn't really have, or it does have controller support, I think. But I played it with touchscreen and it's not quite great yet. But it's a beautiful graphics on a Shantae game. The touch support is
That's just a platformer,
passable.
right?
Yeah, just a platformer game. Yep, there's tons of those on. Well, there's a handful of them, four maybe on other platforms.
Yeah.
And then Way Forward also had a Spider-Saurus game, which it has kind of this cheesy '80s arcade vibe to it, but it plays out kind of like a Contra game. And so playing
Nice.
it with a PlayStation controller was definitely better. I played it first with touchscreen, and that was just hard to get the gun angles to it, but using dual analog, it made it pretty fun. It's kind of simple, but again, I mean, it plays like a Contra game, right? Where if you get hit, you're gonna die, or you've got a couple hits before you die. But again, the graphical style there does make it kind of fun, but it was kind of shallow. So I played it for a little bit, and then was happy to get rid of it. I think the games that I have played the most of have probably been I played a lot of Grindstone, so this is a game that's gotten some good press. It is a kind of a matching puzzle game where you're kind of matching up like colors of little kind of cartoony characters as you make your way through different layers of a dungeon. There's a kind of there's a risk reward mechanic there where you have to uh, chain together enough to be able to then unlock the door to the next layer, the next level. But you can also chain things together to open up a treasure chest. Or the longer you stay in, the more gems you'll collect, but the harder the enemies will get. That they'll need additional hits. So there, you could escape a level really quickly, but you could also stay there and kind of continue to gain uh, gems. It's a fun game. I got only maybe like to 30 or so before it started to get pretty tricky. But it's also a game that I found myself playing way more than I should. As a good mobile game does, is it pulls you in, even when you're in the middle of other things, that you're starting to think about how to map together some of those other pieces. So Grindstone was a lot of fun. Played Sayonara Wild Hearts, so that's also on Switch.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming to PlayStation. I think it's also coming to Epic. It's beautiful, great music, kind of a fun little rhythm game. Again, played it with a PlayStation controller, and it works great. Right, the praise that it's gotten in terms of the aesthetic and the music and the rhythm game aspect is well deserved. It's been a lot of fun. There's definitely some. I would say the other ones that I played that are standouts that maybe haven't gotten a lot of press are Pinball Wizard. So this is kind of a dungeon crawler, but you actually play pinball. So your character is kind of a wizard with a big old head, and he runs around kind of circular or different shaped levels, and you've got flippers at the back of the level that you're kind of pushing him through to collect key to then hit him at the right angle to get into the door, or you could break open treasure chests to get other stuff. So there's again that was one that I had not really heard about. I mean, right, there's other things on here like Exit the Gungeon, and there's a number of other ones, but that one really stood out with me. There's also a Towaga game, Towaga. It's on mobile. It's also Towaga 2 is coming to Switch, and it's kind of this artistic kind of almost like bullet hell shooter, but you're a character kind of shooting light beams out of your hands, but you're moving around in that same type of kind of Super Stardust HD type of way. So again, lots of things to kind of keep kind of dipping into, but a lot of fun to be had for looking at the list of what's on Apple Arcade and what's on the Google Play Pass. The Google Play Pass definitely has a whole lot more, but I almost feel like for anybody that's been playing games on Google, a lot of the things that are on there are things that you already maybe paid for. They're like Terraria or Stardew Valley. If you haven't, they're great values and there's good games there. But a lot of that of the Google Play Pass felt kind of known quantities because it's just kind of bundling existing games. Where
Yeah.
we're here with the Apple Arcade, there's a lot of new stuff and a lot of exclusive stuff that was kind of fun to play around with. And I think the thing that stood out to me most is how much fun it was to go back to playing mobile games without having inundation of stamina and microtransactions and everything else, right? I could just play a game. I played Sonic Racer, and it was weird after coming off of playing Mario Kart Tour to play Sonic Racer and not have to feel like, oh, well, I'm not getting a pop-up to buy more gems to unlock new characters. All I have to do is actually just play the game. So it was kind of refreshing in that way to harken back to an earlier time in mobile game development. So and you've harkened back to an earlier time with your family game night, playing some Master Chief Collection. How did you guys end up playing that as a family, all three of you?
So I think it was No, it was Sunday. Excuse me. Um, After doing like just family stuff throughout the day, and we came home, and I think my son had asked me if he. Oh, my son was asking me about I think like Call of Duty or something, and I was like, hey, can I play that? I was like, no, you can't play that. He's way too young to play Call of Duty. And then he's like, can I play Halo? Like, Sure. I mean, you're shooting stuff, yeah, but they're aliens, and I mean,
They're aliens, yeah. I think I had my sons and I played it while they were, I don't know, they must have been early, middle, elementary school. Yeah.
yeah. So no offense, aliens, but
Yep. Or we
but
played against each other, and they were
shooting
just
aliens,
shooting
yeah.
family members.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, we could probably you could probably play that, and then like my wife, we were like getting ready for dinner or whatever, and my wife's like, hey, I want to play Master Chief because we every once in a while we'll play, and we used to play a lot when we were first dating and stuff. So it's like, oh, yeah,
That's fun. That's
we could
great.
do that, yeah. So I popped in. First, I was gonna do Halo 5, and I was like, oh wait, I can't do that because you can't play local co-op with that anymore. I do have two, Xboxes, but still I only have two, so we all three couldn't play. So it's like, oh,
Yeah, it's not the enjoyment of sitting down on the couch together.
yeah, so like, oh, let me see if I had Master Chief downloaded, and I did. I had to put it on there, and I popped in there. Man, the interface is horrible. It's kind of confusing to try to figure out what you're doing. But I finally got it going. We were playing. We played Capture the Flag, and we played. I think we ended off with like a couple of death matches, just regular death match, not team. Because I couldn't figure out how to do the teams. Once again, like I was like, what the? How do I change? Because we did teams with Capture the Flag, but at least I thought I did, but we were all on the same team, so I was like, well, this is kind of dumb. So that's when we switched over to deathmatch, and I'll have to figure out for Capture the Flag because I could, have them two going against me because I've obviously
So can
played
you
it a lot longer.
play with bots there, or do you play against other humans?
No, it's just I couldn't figure out if you can do bots or not. I thought you could, but
Okay.
I
I
didn't see
thought
it in
so,
the
but I
settings, so I'll have to look it up because that might be a little bit better too. Because there's only like the three of us, like, and it'll be two against one more than likely. We'll capture the flag, obviously, but with deathmatch we just played regular deathmatch, so it's, every man for himself.
yeah.
Um, my son really like. Oh man, I can't remember the name of this stupid map. It's a really small map with like this big stone like arc or arch in the middle of it. So and like the missile launchers or rocket launchers up there.
Oh yeah. Yep. I
Very
can't remember
simple.
that
It's
name
like
either.
2 billions on either side. That's it. So a super small map. But he loved that one. We only played a handful of different maps, but he was like, oh, he just wanted to keep playing that one. So we did. We kept playing that one. But yeah, it was really fun that we were able to do that. And then me and my son, I think Monday, because he had the day off after I got home, my wife was still working. She couldn't play. We played Spartan Ops, which that was pretty fun. So that was
Oh,
just
those are
against,
fun.
yeah, those are just
Yep.
against AI. And is that only two people that you can do that with, or I think right?
I think so, right? And that's in four. That's in Halo 4
Yeah, I
Spartan
believe that
Ops.
was four. Yeah, so that was pretty
Yeah, I
fun. We were
think
able
that's
to,
only two people, but those are fun missions. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
which was kind of weird
That's
because the one we did, or it was the first one I picked. It was a pretty big like open area. It was almost like an old Halo, like a big open area like map that you could go through. So I don't know why they kind of regulated it to just two people, but it was still fun. We had so, and I think we can maybe not the first two, but can't you do more than just two people in the campaign? Or no, is it only two people?
in four. I think one through four, you could do four players in the campaign.
Oh, you could do four. Okay, so maybe we'll do that too eventually. So
Yeah.
that'd be pretty cool.
I know you can do it in the first three. I don't remember about four if you could do four players,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's what I
definitely
thought.
I know.
It's been a while since I've played it, so
Yeah, no, it's
especially
been a while
co-op.
since I have as well, so that's fun.
Yes, so it was a
I'm
fun time.
actually looking forward to when it comes to Steam. Be fun
Oh
to
yeah,
kind of play it with mouse and keyboard as well.
yeah.
So, so I'll stick on the Bungie legacy here, and I've been playing. No surprise, I've been playing Destiny 2. So
No.
I know, but so I have last 2 weeks ago when this launched, it was the launch of Shadowkeep. I played a little bit and talked about the new light experience in terms of restarting or starting a fresh character and how you start in kind of the same kind of intro story mission of the original Destiny from 2014.
All
Since
right.
then, I played some PvP on Xbox, which was fun to play some Crucible again. Played a little bit on PlayStation 4 just to see how it is, and then spent most of my time on PC. It's nice to have an SSD drive, and you really notice a difference in loading times. And so, as the news starts to trickle out in terms of specs for PlayStation 5 and Scarlet, the all the hype about no loading times. When I've stared at my ship flying for a long time in Xbox, even on an Xbox One S, right, or X. I mean that it's nice to have something that loads a little faster. I'm right now at about 9. So the soft cap is 900, the hard cap is 950 with another kind of 10 that you can inch up toward. You level pretty easily to 900, and then after that, it becomes. It, it's not bad. I mean, it is what it has been in terms of there are only certain elements that give you certain activities that give you powerful rewards, and they're actually a little better because you're guaranteed to go up. It'll be 2 above your highest, or 3 above your highest, or 6 above your highest, depending on the tier of what the gear is. So there's some kind of built-in growth there, but it really starts to slow down. You can ramp through those first 150 levels really fast in terms of going from 750, which everybody starts at, up to 900, and then the grindy game begins. And it's not bad, but at this point you kind of know what you're getting into. So it's definitely gotten me reinvigorated in Destiny. It's been fun, but now
You
that
fell
I'm,
off a
I'm
little bit
hitting.
for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, and in part I fell off toward the end of this last season because of uh, knowing that everybody was going to ramp up to 750, and I was at like 720. It really didn't, to me, it didn't pay to kind of try to inch my way forward to the mark when in a month from now, 2 months from now, everybody was going to be up there.
Yeah.
Uh, the new map in terms of the moon is pretty fun, especially if you're a Destiny 1 player. There's a lot of, I still remember flying in those certain areas, and here's the door that takes you this way, and there's a cavern over here where you could check for a chest, and so some of that is nice. It's definitely better and polished. It's a little brighter and better lighting. And now this past week they did a Vex Offensive, which is another kind of new mode. It's actually a lot of fun, and it's like a 6-player kind of, you're in toward the Black Garden. It ties in with the raid. But it's not quite wave based because you're trying to take down a large enemy, but you're kind of going through waves in terms of breaking down his shield and then being able to unload some damage on him as you kind of traverse a certain small map. And so it's a new map or a new mode experience, and it's kind of a nice little change of pace into the mix of everything else.
Nice.
I think the other piece here is that because it's free to play, the new light, so that everybody for it being free to play, and not only do you get all the year one free, but you also get all the current maps in any of the PvP modes. So the Crucible and also Gambit, which is kind of the PvP team piece. So if you're a free player, you still have all the multiplayer maps. So it really helps populate. The wait times have been a lot less now in multiplayer as they were, compared to over the summer. So I'm sure I'm going to stick with it because it is that casual game that I come back to. Um, but we'll see if in 2 weeks, in a month from now, if that grind has hit me hard and I'm looking for other things to play. So
Nice. Now you had mentioned, I think it was in the let's say Flock, not Flock, Discord chat, that you had jumped in some Crucible. Did you play a lot of Crucible before? Like on the
I played a little bit on. Well, I played a significant amount, kind of on and off in waves in Destiny 1. There were a number of kind of exotic weapons tied to the Crucible, so I played there. And then I don't know. I think I ranked up to maybe level 4 in the non-competitive out of 5 levels. I ranked up there. I didn't prestige. So I mean, I played. So usually, what it is if you're playing 3 matches or 5 matches a week, you can earn a powerful engram. So all through kind of out Destiny, I've been playing, kind of chipping away at it. Enough where I know my way around all the I know kind of a shortcut here or there. I know where people may be flanking from. I've actually found that as a pretty go-to experience for multiplayer. I'm not always great, but at the same time, every once in a while, I get a 17-8 ratio in terms of kills, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. So
nice.
yeah, so it certainly is better than my 2-18 ratio in a Battlefield game, but that's okay. I play a medic, and I can
That's
heal
right.
a lot of people.
It's
So,
about the
but yeah, so
team.
no, I think actually Crucible is a lot of fun. I think it has kind of it's a quick game in the kind of Call of Duty experience, right? It's relatively fast paced, um, but there's a little bit of a difference in terms of the classes, but not huge enough that any one is really overpowered. Sometimes you do get into the meta in terms of sometimes there has been some overpowered weapons or armor, but not playing the competitive piece of it and just kind of jumping in for a fun multiplayer aspect. I've it's consistent that even when I feel like I don't want to go back and revisit the same grindy patrol zones, playing Gambit or the Crucible has been something that has been an easy pick up and play for me.
Nice. Yeah, I tried to play Crucible, I feel like a few months ago, and I just got utterly destroyed. So, I don't know.
Well, we should play on Xbox, and we could stick together and help you through the map. But
Yeah.
yes, I think there are times when it is pretty easy to get destroyed. But I always think of it like Call of Duty. You're gonna die quickly, but you're gonna respawn pretty quickly too.
That's true.
So
Because I guess it doesn't really matter what level you are, right? Because the gun, like, there's no advantage or anything. Unless
no,
it's
I
the
mean
Iron, what's the one?
unless it's Iron Banner,
Iron
right?
Banner,
Where
yeah.
then light level does make a difference. But
Yeah.
here, everything is kind of leveled out. If you have a perk on your gun in terms of or a piece of weapon armor that has a perk of like tracking an enemy or being able to see radar, those perks exist. So sometimes there are some competitive advantages that happen, but
Yeah.
in terms of somebody's light level, somebody punching you heavier and harder, doesn't exist. So
Okay.
in some ways, a lot of times it's knowing the map, and it's a lot of Destiny 2 has been sticking together as a team, and that's been kind of the meta even before some of the other updates. That you're better off kind of team killing people than trying to lone wolf it.
Yeah.
So
That makes me feel worse then, because I'm just super crappy in that game. It's just been a while. It's just been a while since I played it. That's all.
that's okay. I'm sure if I jumped into Call of Duty with, I would feel the same way. So anyhow, you've got one more game on your playlist, and let's use it as our last game of the night.
Yes. So,
What?
yep. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah. So Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. I think it was like HD Pocket Edition or something like that. It's the full title. I just wanted I wanted an RPG or something a little lighter. I guess Final Fantasy is not really light usually, but this is a Pocket Edition, so it's not too bad.
This one's pretty light. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
to
pretty
play.
action. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was just looking for something. I'm like, I didn't really want to go back to Zelda right now, and play through that. It's a little bit more involved, and I mean, I always have Skyrim that I can go to, but I've played that before, so I was looking for something new. I was like, oh yeah, I got Final Fantasy, so I jumped back into that. I've been playing that kind of off and on the last few weeks, so just having fun with it. I just now got past, I guess, the first level or whatever it's called. Like, they have little story pockets of story levels, I guess, I suppose. And the next one is like open world, I think it's called, like something like that. So I'm assuming I'll be able to just go around and do like side missions other than just the regular mission. I've never played it before, so I don't know if you've ever played the Pocket Edition version of.
I played the Pocket Edition a little bit. It plays out. I mean, the story beats are pretty much exactly what the main game is. I put in 20 some hours into the main game,
Okay.
on PlayStation 4, and it played out kind of beat for beat. I mean, it cuts down some of the grindy bits. So did you get so you're out in kind of the wasteland aspects. You've got your car. Have you made it over to the boat marine area yet?
Yeah, I did that part.
Okay. Yep. And then you got to go back and yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
there's that report that the family, like your father died or something like that, and you died somehow. So
I think your father just dies.
I think they reported that you died too. I think they mentioned your name, which I think
Oh
kind
yeah.
of confused
Yes.
everybody. So I was like, what?
Yep.
Then I was like, what's going on? What? So, but yeah, because so far up to that point, I mean, it kind of just seemed all linear. Like, they're just kind of shoving you into the the direction you need to go. There's a little bit of like an area that you can kind of play around in, but it wasn't like open. So I mean,
Yeah.
the next section says open world, so I'm assuming, or open something.
Yeah. It really does. It opens up quite a bit there. Spent a lot of time in that. kind of section before you get to like the next town. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it's fun. I mean, it is, and you don't have to. It's not as fiddly or as complicated in terms of its battle systems.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
but
The only thing that throws me off is the having the deformed kind of anime characters that you're playing, but having like the voice come out of it, like it's like I'm
yeah,
expecting
I
like a
think it
kitty
uses
voice or
the actual
something.
voices.
Yeah.
Yeah, nope, it's but
Yeah.
it
So
is
that's
well,
throwing me
neat.
off.
That's kind of fun that's what's drawing you back. So
Yep.
not always something that's in your wheelhouse in terms of a JRPG. So cool. Well, so our Pickz assignment as we're coming into October and our next game playlist game experience show GX show is the 29th of October, so heading into All Hallows Eve.
Right.
So we are going to have a Halloween horror game assignment here. So something creepy, spooky, something either maybe Halloween themed or horror themed. We all probably own some edition of Resident Evil something at one point in time, so we've got that. But there may be some other games that are in our backlogs or games that are coming out that we want to pick up. Anybody with Game Pass also has the Blair Witch Project, which just came out.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple of Resident Evil games that have come to Switch that are now discounted in sales, and Capcom always puts stuff out on sale during this time as well. So there's lots of different options in terms of things out here. In the last week's show or 2 weeks ago, Agassicles was talking about Control and some of the creepy aesthetic there, but maybe not as creepy as he had hoped for. Yeah, we talked about that in our Discord channel a little bit, but
Yeah.
so but again, it does a good job of kind of setting up an atmosphere. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of jump scare game. That it could be just atmospheric, something creepy. Thinking about a game at the time of my life. I played the Silent Hill game on Wii in the dark, late at night, and it's the one where you don't really have any weapons, so you're just kind of running away from the enemies.
Yeah.
And I can remember I was probably exhausted, and I got so tense that I got dizzy. I had to sit down, right? Uh, um, so, so I mean, I think that games don't have to necessarily be scary to be effective. That they can be emotionally impactful as well. So this is our Pickz assignment. We'll be coming back to this in 2 weeks, seeing what we chose in terms of our horror game, in terms of our Halloween themed game. If you've got Costume Quest sitting out there in your backlog somewhere, that might be another game to pick up here as well. So,
Did you have any ideas for your game?
so I've got Resident Evil 7 on
Oh,
PlayStation, which I
nice.
picked up, played a little bit back a year and a half ago when it was in my assignment in terms of potentially playing something. I got too scared, actually.
Okay.
Um, but now it might be a good reason to go back to. I've been playing it. When I played it in VR, and
Oh,
it was
well.
pretty effective. So I might do that. I also have Five Nights at Freddy's in VR. So chances are I'm gonna try to pick up some type of VR game and do some horror aspects with it. So we'll see what that
Nice.
becomes.
All right. Yeah, I'm probably gonna do some
How about
off of Game Pass, like you mentioned. That's because I don't think I have anything otherwise. I don't usually buy horror Halloween games, so maybe Blair
yeah?
Witch
Well,
or
that's
some else that's on there. I'll look. I'm sure they got a bunch now, especially now they probably threw some on there.
yeah. I think you're probably right that Game Pass definitely continues to expand and be a good. I don't know. I still think it's a great value.
Yeah,
So
it's a good resource, especially with these pick plays now, where I might not have some of these
exactly.
games.
Yep. Nice. Well, good. Well, so that hits us at our hour mark here. Um, for myself, DBQ Hams and Osiris Prime. This has been enough to keep going on the E2KG network. This was episode 115. We'll be back with you next week for our deep dive episode as we dive into the news and the industry for the week. So until then, enjoy what you play, enjoy who you play with, and remember that games are only as much fun as the experiences we have with the people we play with. Good night.